Hi, everyone. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the following podcast belong solely to the host and its contributors. They are not necessarily the views of our employers, organizations, committees, or other group or individual.
Welcome back to Brewing with Bim. I am your host, Joey Whitney, and with me is David Campbell. What's up, David?
What's up, Joe? How you doing?
I'm doing well, my man. I said your host, but you're also the host, so I don't know. We're
Yeah,
both
it's a
hosts.
co-host relationship.
Yes, sir. We seem to do that a lot, quite a bit lately, man. Like
Yeah.
today, even for those of you guys that don't know, David and I hosted a Dynamo presentation for a global, webinar called Festival of BIM and Digital Construction.
Yeah.
Both co-hosting again, man. Love
Yeah,
it.
it was coast. It was a good time, man. We had a panel discussion, and we had a lot of experts. And what I really love about our presentation today is that everybody's experience was different. Whether we had someone that actually went through and they concentrated on coding. That was their kind of background. And it's transitioned into Dynamo, and they're writing several scripts into. Let's say someone in production. He's an electrical modeler, MEP modeler, and figured out how to use. We got the neighbors riding by on their razors out here. I love the country. I love the country so much.
Well,
Let's
it's a
get a.
beautiful backdrop, man. It
Oh
is.
yeah, it's a beautiful night out here in Indiana. I tell you what, today was pretty warm, but it's not as humid. Another thing I didn't realize that I missed, but if you look out over the field, they got a pond area and stuff over here to my left. There's fireflies everywhere,
Oh
right?
yeah.
It's crazy how little of these things kind of bring you back to your younger times. Bring back memories.
We've been seeing them around here, and I don't think I've seen or at least noticed a lightning bug or firefly, whatever you want to call them,
Hmm.
for at least 20 years. Like I just maybe they weren't around, or maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But all of a sudden I saw it, and my daughter, who's seven's, like, oh, they have them here. Like yeah, it's like leaning on. It's like it's sitting on our screen, just glowing. It was pretty cool,
Yep.
man.
It's
But
magical, dude. Used
just
to run around when we were kids and catch all of them, and now my kids are doing it. This is cool.
get
But you
a
gotta let
job.
them go.
Yeah,
Gotta let them go.
let it
Can't
go.
keep them. Yeah. Oh
Ah,
man.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Festival of BIM. It was a great
Yes,
presentation.
it
Um,
was.
I really liked it. So, if you guys haven't seen it, we'll include a link to the webcast for that, so you guys can check it out. If you're not using Dynamo or haven't explored Dynamo yet, it's probably a great conversation to get you in there. After the presentation, I had about 6 or 7 LinkedIn requests based off of that. People asking. One of the comments in particular said, "I feel really empowered now to get into Dynamo." Like that. That to me was like, oh well, we
That was
touched one
great.
person.
Yeah,
It was worth
it
it.
felt
That
great.
was
Yeah,
yeah.
heck yeah. I mean, honestly, we brought up a lot of good points with ROI, getting into Dynamo, what makes you or what made you make that decision, and when you're developing new scripts, um, how or what is your process to develop them? Is it project based or is it actual template based? What makes sense with the timeline, and how much time do you want to use on these scripts, and how far do you want to take them? Are you doing deep dives, which could cost you more in terms of time, right? And what is it going to possibly return at the end of the day?
Yeah, so I think the main 3 takeaways for me were one, ease of use, the ability to learn it, all that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Number two, the instant ROI. Everybody that did it so far said that the time savings that they took that they achieved with their Dynamo scripts on that first project quickly made up for any time that they sank into learning. And in an extreme instance, one of the gentlemen cut his cost down. What did he say, by 75%? Like
Yeah.
he cut his time down, but it would have taken him, uh, you know, for example, 100 hours to do only took them 25 hours to do. So they shaved 75% of their time off by creating Dynamo scripts, and these first time Dynamo scripts. So that's pretty awesome. Like coming out of the gate, hit a home run.
Yeah, heck yeah, feels great.
Yep, and then ease of use, instant ROI. I'm blanking on the third one, but use cases, like the amount of unique use cases, and then also to hear that, like, oh, we were having similar issues as somebody else. They shared scripts, so therefore we took it and tweaked it. Like, you're not the only one that faces issues. Yes, there will be some unique to you circumstances, but for the most part, everybody's experiencing issues, and there might be somebody who's already created a script for you to start from, or at least got an idea out there for you to recreate as your own. And maybe you want to set it up differently, but whatever. But it'll give you an idea on how it's supposed to run, and it's such an empowering feeling to be able to get in there and make the software do more than it's supposed to. One, without having to contract development teams. Two, not having to buy expensive plugins to make it do that stuff. And three, it really enables you to be a coder. Like, I think we're starting to see that a little bit more, even though it's not real. Like, when you think about it in terms of like syntax and like real coding,
Python,
developing stuff in the script. Yeah. Like, you can get into some of that stuff, but it's all visual. It's so much easier, so much more intuitive. And you play around with it for 6 months, and you're bound to have some good wins.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm going to go back to #David is a hippie, but I love how everybody is sharing this information, right? As you said there, a lot of people are having these. Sharing is caring. Whoop, whoop. But everybody's sharing this information, and I called them playbooks earlier because that's how I think of them. But you got all these Dynamo scripts that you can look up in the library and go through and pick out your playbook, like really run your perfect plays in Dynamo. And just set everything together. And then there are scripts, as I said, that are already done that you guys can take a look at and kind of see how they work. And again, with talking and sharing this information some more, you're able to tweak it, right? And most times you can tweak it and make it work for exactly what you want. Well, chances are somebody else could use that data, right? Somebody else could use that, and somebody could take that and kind of push it further. And everybody's sharing this information to help push it, which I really love. What is it? Project Refinery. I do love that generative design kind of with Dynamo, and everybody's sharing this information to help us kind of grow as an industry. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm on board 100%. And I think we've done our first tangent accidentally, guys. So you guys don't know, but this actually has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. So without further ado, my man, what are you drinking?
All right. So tonight I am drinking a India Pale Ale from 18th Street Brewery out of Hammond, Indiana. And it is actually a pretty awesome pretty awesome can here. So let me move that over into the screen here. It's called Sex and Candy, and I don't know if you guys can see, but all over it, it's got little fuzzy handcuffs, whips, strawberries, and candy.
Nice. So yeah. The packaging is cool, but how does it taste?
So actually, I drank a couple of them before this podcast, and it is actually it's a really good citrusy IPA. It's just heavy. I've noticed it is pretty heavy. Your typical IPA is going to be quite filling after 1.5 to 2 of them, but yeah, it does taste good. It's a nice finish, honestly.
I wish we had the rights. We could cue some Macy's Playground in the background. I smell sex and candy. Yeah. All right, that's it. Stop or we'll get sued. Not for using the song, but for butchering it. So, my man, I have got my little concoction that we were talking about earlier. So for those of you guys that don't know, I was on the Construction Dorks podcast today, and I was debating on what I was going to drink, and David and I had a little back and forth, and we were talking about what to put in this. I had some Iron Smoke whiskey left over from our podcast where I drank this. It's from Rochester, New York. I go up there about once a month to hang out with my wife's family. I'll be heading up there for the 4th of July. And, with that, I've been, I told you, Dave, I've been on this kick where I was pickling everything. Well, one week I decided to candy some lemons. I got a bunch of candied lemons in here. My wife picked up some cherries, fresh cherries, last week. So I'm, trying to finish those up. So I muddled some fresh cherries. I've got these candied lemons in here. I put a little sprig, little dusting of nutmeg and cinnamon in there to give me that little bitters flavor. And then I've got a little bit of blackberry flavoring in there. So I've got myself, I'm dubbing this the blackberry old fashioned. It's quite delicious. It's not orange, it's using lemon, but I think it's still on point, man. It's pretty damn good.
Okay. And next time I come up, we'll have to try it.
Yeah. And I decided to get a little smart about this. So earlier today, probably about 3 or 4 of these on the Construction Dorks podcast, all in a span of about an hour and 15 minutes. And what I made the mistake of doing was just pouring more whiskey in here because, upstairs, I don't want to go upstairs, remake this cocktail. So I just kept topping it off. So this first one is mostly sweet, mostly ingredients, probably only about 25% whiskey. So what I'm going to start doing is, as I get about halfway through or quarter way through, I'll start topping it off there. Hopefully it'll still have lots of syrup or not syrup, flavorings and stuff in there. Not so much the whiskey because I was feeling it, man. We had some errands to run this afternoon. And I just looked at my wife and she goes, "Do you need me to drive?" I said, yes, I do.
Yes, yes, I do. Let's do this.
By the way, I don't know if you got to tune into it, but it was they do a live podcast, which is pretty interesting. And it's something maybe we think about in the future. I don't know. Maybe do a live episode from time to time. They do Zoom and they, did a live webcast with it. And they had, like 40 or so people in attendance. Plus they post it. So, they'll capture thousands more later on.
Yeah.
But it was a very interesting format. It was kind of like, there was a moderator and it was kind of like a battle back and forth. I was pro Excel, then there were other people that were pro Power BI, and it was kind of cool, very dorky, like lived up to the name Construction Dorks. Great podcast, and maybe sometime we'll talk about a crossover or something. But
dude.
Anyways, guys, check them out. That was great. I only feel, I feel it's fair that I give them a shout out on this podcast because I gave us a shout out on their podcast. I was like, what do you do? And I was like, I host a podcast, Brewing with BIM. We drink beer and talk about BIM, construction technology. So I was like, all right, let's give them a shout out here. But cool though. Anyways, so we got a great episode today, and I know it's great because you and I did this same episode yesterday, only to find out that we had some audio issues.
Yeah.
So David and I, we don't script the tangents. It's all ad-libbed 100%. But we do have a few topics in mind that we want to talk about. We're going to get through CIM. We're going to talk a little bit about Bluebeam, and we're going to talk a little bit about layout. And they kind of all flow together in some facets, some way or another. We'll make them fit. Don't worry.
We'll make time for tangents. Don't worry about that.
But there'll be plenty of tangents wrapped in there. And the reason why we feel that these are very important topics are just given things that Dave and I are dealing with in the industry at current moment. We're working more and more, while we're on the BIM side, we also cross over a lot in the CIM side, dealing with the information inside of infrastructure models. David and I haven't touched Civil 3D in years. I've purposefully uninstalled it on my computer so I wouldn't have to touch it. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, Joe, we need you to do this. Damn, I got to reinstall. But that said, you and I, we went through some pretty cool workflows in Civil 3D, InfraWorks. We, got into some stuff with Bluebeam there. We were working with all kinds of scan data. Like, I think we had some fun on that project, man. I think I definitely geeked out a little bit.
Oh yeah, I definitely geeked out on that project. It was a lot of fun. I mean, seeing the scan data itself, was very cool. I haven't really ever played with that type of scan data before. You know, I've got a lot of from commercial buildings, things like that, even process plants, architectural models. But that was my first time seeing or kind of playing with roadway data, right? And then being able to see all the line work, all the like the notches in the pavement. It was a good scan, and I mean, they said what they were going 45 miles per hour,
Yeah.
and did 3 passes on it. So I mean, it's not even like. I mean, obviously, I think that you would want to go slower and maybe try to catch all of that data, like but in going 45, they caught a lot of that data, and it looked pretty good coming into. Um, well, we were able to take it into Collage, process it, and then export the orthos and send those into Civil 3D.
Yeah, it was a lot easier than sharing the actual point cloud back and forth.
Hmm.
Bandwidth dependent, all that fun stuff. That said, though, we ended up getting the raw scan data. The orthos were just fine. Everything was geo-referenced, which I really liked.
Yeah,
I had
yeah,
played with a lot of roadway drone data before, and I'd gone through linear feature extraction with that, just playing around. But uh, you're right, man. I've never ever taken a roadway scanner data. That RDM1 scanner was pretty nice, and
yep,
it got everything right on point.
yeah. Even got the houses off the road. You could take measurements on how far the houses were from the road. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, I was wishing he didn't clean up the data set and send it to us. I would have loved the raw data file that he sent with
Yep.
everything in it, because
Yeah.
it pulled. What did he say? It was just a hair under 180 degrees, but it pulled everything.
Yep. Yep.
It
I
was
think
pretty
those
cool.
houses were like 31 feet away, and it definitely got the sides of the houses and stuff as you passed. So that
Yeah,
was pretty cool.
got
I
landscaping and got everything. It's pretty
Yeah,
cool. Yeah.
yeah, it was, dude. I thought it would be I thought it'd be really cool. You know, we kind of talked about this if we got gutters in it, or I'm sorry, curbs, gutters. Good lord, if we got curbs in there and took
Well,
that
if you got a
into.
curb, you got a gutter. Just saying, man.
That's true. Um, but you got that curve, man. If you could take that into InfoWorks, I know we're going to talk about feature extraction here in a little bit, but if you could take that data and start pulling the curves, the sidewalks, everything like that from InfoWorks, that's pretty awesome. It is.
Yeah, so that workflow is the one that I'm more familiar with, and I was using that with drone data. I had some sample data sets I got from a contact over at Autodesk that allowed me to do this, maybe a year ago. I hadn't really played with it too much since then. Like I said, I try to stay out of civil. I like InfoWorks.
Hmm.
I like being, funny story, man. When I was in Oregon, I had to, I was doing a lot of construction on my house there.
Yep.
When I was going through the permitting process, there was like a ridiculous requirement through the county of the stuff that I need to have for my house. They're like, well, if you don't have a topographical survey, you need to have, we don't have it on file. You need to actually show 2 and 10 contours, for your entire property. And I was like, crap, like, do you have that? They're like, no, we don't. We don't have that for anybody that's an unincorporated, in the unincorporated county. I was like, oh, well, do you want me to do this? They're like, yeah, just, give us this data. So I went to InfoWorks, got the open source data,
Yeah.
exported that to Civil, brought it into Revit, plopped my house right on top of it, man.
That's
Uh,
cool.
I was done, dude. It was kind of fudged in and manipulated. But the funny
Hey.
story is, I turned it over to the county, and they're like, "What are you doing? We don't need any of this." I was like, "What? Like, you're killing me!"
What do you
Oh,
want?
oh my
You know,
gosh.
dude, my one of my favorite parts about what we were doing was you kind of already said there everything, all the orthos were geo-referenced. When we brought it in, you like inserted it in and then position it in its actual like geolocation. So in this instance, we were using like the coordinates, and then like you inputted the coordinate system. You told it where to go. And once you did that, we activated an aerial map and everything lined up. That was like one of the coolest things, obviously. I mean, it's shared coordinates and everything. It's awesome when it works right. But it's like that stuff when it came in, it was, I mean, it assembled everything. You went to Google Maps, you zoom in, zoom out, and it's all there.
Well, I can't tell you how many times we got it wrong at first. So
Oh yeah.
uh,
Oh yeah.
our colleague and myself, he was telling me the coordinate system that it was on. He's like Nat 83 and the state. I was like, and the zone and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, that's fine. I'm pulling in, and it's not pulling up. I'm like, what the heck's going on? Like, nothing's in the spot it was supposed to be. We're like way off. And it all turns out,
It was metric.
it was metric.
It was metric. I was
So,
like, man, this seems familiar.
oh my gosh. I'm like, all right, let's just try this on meters and see where we're at. But
Yeah.
so
Yep.
when you're saying like when it works, it's like, yes, when it works, it's great. But in our instance, and I'll be honest, in many instances, it's human error.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yep.
But it was definitely fun to go through that. And I've got a few more use cases just like that coming up. So we're going to be doing more of this workflow. There's many on our team that already do this. It was just fun for us to get to play with it. You and I love scan data. We love new technology.
Yep.
We love all the fun stuff. So this was pretty cool to get roped into.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. I definitely have ADD when it comes to technology. You show me shiny things, and I'm like, what's up? Why?
You can give me a license to that? Yeah, yeah. Just give it to me. I'll make time. I'll make time to play
I'll
with it.
figure it out. I will figure it out.
So, because of this project, I installed Civil 3D, and I was kind of happy. I was a little surprised. Those that have moved to the AEC collection, the Autodesk software package, know that it's a little bit different than the way that we used to run packages. We used to have like design suites, building design suite, infrastructure design suite, standard, premium, ultimate, all that stuff. But if you choose one, it'll allow you to install everything all at once. It's a big file, like you're downloading and installing everything all at once. With the AEC collection, it's kind of a pain in the butt because you're like, I got to go and install all these individually, blah, blah, blah. You're like him and Han the whole time. But I will tell you, it downloads so much faster. Like I installed Civil 3D 2021 in like 15 minutes. It was crazy. Like boom, done, downloaded. Rather than fighting all the, communication errors, browser download now, going through all the different options, trying to figure out what works. It was instantaneous. It worked great. And then only to find out that I needed to get 2020 installed 15 minutes later, man, I was done. That was downloaded too. It was pretty nice.
Yeah, man, the new downloads are pretty awesome. I know we've talked about it on a previous podcast with Revit 2021. I thought it was interesting at the time that the family content, like material browser, all that, just the family content library does not come with the initial download of Revit. But when you sit down and think about it, for one, that download is so much faster. And a lot of times that's what hangs up your download or something that might not even download. And you have to go chase it down and download the entire family library content anyways. But what I really like is the fact that they're lightening up these downloads, but at the same time, they're pushing more content into the download itself. I mean, you're seeing Dynamo install with most design applications now. It's installing with Revit, and a lot of those packages are pretty much built in. I wanted to say what was it? The structural analysis, the robot structural analysis is actually downloaded within Revit. It's awesome. It's nice. And seeing, from previous experience back in 2013, 2014, 2015 Revit, gosh, that download would take so long to just get that program onto your computer. It was almost like an all-day thing, depending on your bandwidth. And nowadays, you're like, browser download? Sure. Yeah, and I can keep doing whatever it is I'm doing. Oh, okay, Revit's installing. And, okay, here we go. I got Revit. In the same day, in a matter of maybe 30 minutes to an hour. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's definitely. I definitely am a big fan of it.
Yeah.
Like I was mentioning earlier, where we had like browser download, download. You still have those options, but I find myself not having to mess with them as much because I don't have the connectivity issues that are not timing out. There's like nothing
Yep.
really going wrong. It's
Yep.
just doing pretty well. I think once or twice maybe I've had to go to the manage.autodesk.com portal and get some specific content, but for the most
Yeah.
part, everything's where I need it to be. Downloads pretty quickly. That said, man, we used to run deployments because we got sick of keep downloading stuff, and we do a lot of installations and implementations and all that stuff. So we'd keep deployments for, on a like 2 terabyte or 5 terabyte, however big it was, hard drive, external hard drive, and we'd keep deployments on there, and everybody would just install from that because it was just so much faster. That said, I remember installing, I think it was like Inventor or maybe it was Plant 3D, but my machine was tied up for damn near a whole day. Like I'm
Yeah.
sitting there like, and it was like all resources tapped. Like you can't even open Outlook because it doesn't have enough resources to run Outlook and
Yeah.
do the inside. It was just craziness, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but those days are over, hopefully. Knock on wood or faux
Yeah.
wood, whatever this
Yep. Yep.
is.
Yep. Yep. Faux wood. There you go.
Faux wood. It's one of these standing desks I got. It's pretty cool. It's like electric up and down, which was dumb, right? I was like, oh, I want one of these electric ones because that way, if I want to change my position, up, standing, or sitting, it's a click of a button, does it instantaneously. So I opted for this electrical one, which was dumb because I have a bar height stool that I sit on, and it's pretty much the same height whether I'm sitting or standing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Heck, if it was hand crank, I could just do 3 cranks and probably be, sitting a little bit better. But yeah,
That's true.
yeah, it was all right. It was a good Amazon buy. I think I paid like $200 for it. Not a bad deal. Anyways, man, enough about my piddly office here. You and I, we had some fun, like I said, on this CIM, and we keep saying this term CIM, Civil Information Modeling. It's the infrastructure industry's term for BIM, for horizontal construction, if you will. Think about pumping information in a bridge or in a roadway project, and into pretty much anything. And a lot of people don't think of Civil as a database tool. They think of it as there's points, there's surfaces. It's a design tool. They don't think of it in the same way that they think about Revit. But I'm here to say, if you set up Civil 3D correctly, there's a whole database that you can tap into. Well, there's actually several databases you can tap into. You can have a points database, you can do all kinds of stuff there, but you can have a database specifically for your materials. So just like we can do in like AutoCAD and Revit, where we can apply materials, you can do the same type of stuff inside of Civil 3D, but you can also do quantity takeoff with it inside of Civil 3D. Like you can get all your costing, your calcs, all that stuff, just by setting up this material database, and it's pretty nice.
Yeah. I
That
actually
said,
did like the line styles that we were able to kind of recreate from the scan from that ortho that we took into Civil 3D.
are you talking about in InfoWorks or are you talking about in Civil 3D?
Okay, so I'm talking about you're right. I'm talking about InfoWorks. It is InfoWorks when we did feature extraction and we could adjust the line styles there.
Yep.
Yep. You're right.
Yeah, well, that's
Dang.
very important, and it plays into Civil 3D in an important way. So there are different line styles. So you would set a line style for your edge of asphalt. You would set one for if you had curb for your curb,
Hmm.
and you would do all these in a certain way so that when we did our feature extraction, it would bring the curbs in as shape files in the Civil 3D. We would get the center line of the road. We could actually bring in the existing surfaces to go with it. And inside of Civil 3D, we would have pretty much an as-built model based off of the point cloud. Like
Yeah.
it's a sweet workflow. And then if you got your line style set up in Civil 3D correctly, you could bring in your paint striping to match and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, man, pretty remarkable stuff.
It was very cool. It was very cool to see. Now, I
Yeah.
also like taking it into Bluebeam, though. I thought that was pretty awesome. I mean, being able to, of course, well, I really want to say it's the deliverable, right? Not only just the deliverable, but when we took the orthos and we had all the line styles, all the data, we had measurements in there, and plotted it to a PDF. And sure enough, you see the intensity view of the scan. You go in, you go to comment on it, you're snapping to the point cloud itself. You're snapping to the lines, like the line styles, the different measurements in it. It
Yeah,
was awesome. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I have never seen an ortho in a PDF
Oh,
vectorized like that.
yep.
It was crisp. It was clear. The Bluebeam print engine did a remarkable job. It was a bit heavy. I think it went a little bit slower than a normal PDF. But that said, it had a lot of information. It was very dense.
Well,
Those
yeah, and it had a
orthos.
map image behind it too that we
Oh
captured.
yeah, that's right. So it had
It had a
aerial.
lot of,
Yeah, it
yeah.
had the aerial and it had the scan data, the orthos in there. And we just, did the typical, scale and Bluebeam for to get our measurements, or we did some
Yep.
measurements to scale.
Calibrated. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
that's the word, calibrate. Dang
We
it.
calibrated it. Yep. We calibrated it to the scale and we're able to take measurements from it, man. It was awesome. But it had me thinking of a new workflow. That was one of the biggest things I was trying to figure out with Bluebeam. So I'm like, man, how can I get a scan into Bluebeam Review? How can I get a scan into a project? Or how can I get a scan into a 3D PDF? And if I can take orthos and stitch those together and bring it into Bluebeam Review, that's an interesting kind of workflow because at that point I can still mark up on the point cloud. I have the full as-built existing model. That's a workflow I'll have to explore a little bit, I think.
It's gonna be a bit heavy. Somebody turned me on to something recently that handles mobile, like UAV type data and stuff like that very easily now. It's called Propeller. I don't know
Okay.
much about it. Somebody gave me some info and insight on it. Um, there's a local company here in Pittsburgh called Identified Technologies that does a lot of drone work, and we got a mutual customer, but they're also looking at this other company called Propeller. But what it does is similar stuff, but it allows you to do like um, uh, location based, viewing of your data. So I could go walk a site and turn on my GPS on my phone or
Yep.
whatever, my tablet.
Yep.
And what we were talking about this before with some other stuff, but it's kind of gives me
You're
that
talking about like Bluebeam Atlas.
well, it gives me the augmented reality version of the mobile data
Oh,
as I'm walking
wow.
around. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That sounds very awesome. Heck yeah.
Yeah, check it out sometime. It's called Propeller, man. Again, I don't
Yeah.
know much about
Well, I
it.
was gonna say
Not a
there
paid
when you started
spokesperson. I
talking
don't know
about
anything.
when you started talking about viewing your point cloud data mobile, I thought you were gonna go with Recap Pro. But have we checked anything like that out for mobile data yet? For
Well,
for mobile viewing?
Recap Pro was nice, but I think for collaborating and sharing large file sets, you know, there's a lot of oh, I'm trying to figure out a nice way of saying this. There are a lot of field guys that don't want to touch any
Mhm.
Autodesk products. Not for a knock
Oh,
against
yeah.
Autodesk. It's just they think it's complex and it could be tedious. So they usually buy like very siloed specific tools um,
Oh, okay.
for their
Okay.
jobs, which kind of sucks because if you think about Autodesk's big mission, it's about aggregating all the data, single source of truth. So if we could get it all through BIM 360, that'd be nice. That said, we don't yet have the ability to look at point cloud data inside of BIM 360.
No, not yet. Not yet. I've tried. I tried many different ways.
Yeah.
It didn't
The
work.
only thing I can think is publishing in Navisworks and then saving that Navis file up to the cloud, and that'll get you there, man. But
Yeah, that's true.
it's not really a point cloud at that point.
No, it'd be almost like those orthos.
Yeah. But anyways, so the agency or the company that this project owner that we were working with was handing over to was requiring Bluebeam. So it was very interesting that we got to tie like all aspects together and work with Bluebeam, publish up there, and
Sorry,
push
I'm
in.
sitting outside. I'm getting eaten up by these mosquitoes. I'm like,
Oh
man,
man, yeah, you're just
I
talking
hate
about how
mosquitoes.
you're just talking about how you love the country, and then
Oh man, I love the country and I love this pond and the fireflies. And then all of a sudden it's like 5 billion mosquitoes. And it's like, what? Wait, why?
my wife and I keep talking about this is our 5 year house. This is our third house in
Mhm.
10 years. We just can never sit still. But my wife's like, well, in 5 years we should probably look at getting that land you've always wanted. And I'm like, yeah, the land I've always wanted. Sounds like more yard work, but it sounds great. Get a bigger piece of property, all that sort of stuff. Live a little bit further out, assuming I can get some good internet still.
Yeah.
Um, but that said, she was talking with her boss, and her boss lives out in the country. They had a black bear run through their backyard. They had a snake in their house,
Oh,
two snakes in their house. Um, they had
I
something
live
else
in
like,
Sandy and that's happened to me, dude. My cat used to bring snakes into the house. And we thought like at first he brought one in and it was dead, but then he brought like 2 or 3 in and he didn't kill them. And then he left them, like one in the laundry basket, one in the kid's bed. And
I,
yeah.
I'm not talking about a gardener snake. I'm talking about an 8-foot rat snake, man.
Oh no.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Nope.
I don't know what I'd do at
No.
that point,
I
man.
don't
I'm gonna
even know if
burn
I'm
down my
going in the
house.
house. I am not going in the house. Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
happening.
burn it down. Yeah, he was on his back deck, and a bear ran through their backyard, and I was just like, like walk away slowly, like go inside. Like, I'm done, guys, done.
Yep,
But
yep, yep.
yeah, so I don't know,
But
man.
what were you saying,
Country
bro? I'm
seems.
sorry. What were you saying? I totally interrupted you on that tangent there.
Oh man, I got lost on the tangent with you, my man. I think we were just talking about like Bluebeam being the handover, and it was really nice to tie it all together. It was really nice to get to work with some of that stuff, especially get to tie into Studio because we work with a lot of people that use Bluebeam, yet
Yep.
they aren't leveraging the Studio functionality. Not because there isn't a use case, but just because the lack of know-how or whatever it is. But Studio is a very powerful feature that I wish more people got to take care of, and it sounds like they're going to leverage it on this project, so that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, dude, actually, one big thing I did want to kind of highlight from that is they talked about the DOT there where they were working that excuse me, the Bluebeam was the requirement. The Bluebeam review was the requirement. That's what they used. And it was an interesting workflow to see at that point when they can connect to the engineers. The engineers can place their comments, place markups, measurements, and then actually save that into the PDF. And the beautiful thing about it is at that point, they can take it back from PDF, insert it into Civil 3D. And dude, I got to do that today. Actually, I played with that functionality. And when you do it, you bring it in as it's scaled, right? And when you insert that PDF in, you zoom in and it's already like overlaid. You can trace over it. You can kind of see exactly where these comments were made on the design and say, okay, yeah, I need to change that, or this detail here needs to look like this. This needs to be 30 feet. Okay, cool. I can make that quick adjustment. I thought that was an awesome workflow. It really was.
Oh yeah, man, bringing back the PDF in, underlaying it, making your changes right over the top of it, like that's a nice workflow, man. I like it.
Yep.
Um, and then the PDF, like, it's so today I did this podcast and it was all about like the death of Excel. They were trying to kill Excel. When I
Yeah.
think of Excel, I think of like yesterday's technology, but at the same time, I think of a very powerful tool, and spreadsheets in general. And it just makes me think of PDFs the same way. Like everybody's trying to kill the PDF. They're trying to go to digital, these
Yeah.
platforms and all that stuff. But I think if you think about it, there is so much more versatility in a PDF.
Yep.
Um,
Not
you
everybody
know,
needs the design program.
exactly. Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think if I think
oh,
it's
go ahead.
all about the amount of data you can capture out of the
Yep.
design program and into the PDF. And if you can
Yep.
do that, that PDF becomes more worthwhile. And we're probably backtracking on some stuff because I know in the past we've talked about like BIM 360 or whatever platform that you're going to, like, um, adopting this technology is more robust, it's more powerful, and what it is, but it isn't for everybody. And I get that. I'm conceding a little bit, and I'm just saying PDFs hold weight, they hold power, they're
They
great.
do.
That said, you can still save PDFs to BIM 360. So I guess the point is
Yes.
moot.
Well, there's so many. I really want to highlight a few things there, though. Like with PDFs, with Excel, especially going into Bluebeam, I've got to see some awesome functionality with that. Just say you have a whole costing sheet, your materials, everything already built out in Excel, right? You have all your macros, all your micros set, all your formulas are in, and all you need to do is you have certain cells that need to be filled in, right? And a lot of times on a takeoff workflow, you're going to go ahead and take off from the document, the PDF, what have you, and then you're going to manually put it into Excel. But with something like Bluebeam and Quantity Link, you can already take that information. Like if you just link it into the PDF itself, and track like the subject or the label information from that markup, that measurement, you can have it autofill your Excel spreadsheet, and that data is going as that document updates, right? And you start talking about Studio, man. I mean, honestly, when you start connecting online real-time collaboration or the functionality of projects, it just gets so much better when you're talking about how these documents can be, or what information can be pulled from these documents, right? I mean, it's awesome. It really is. And I don't think Excel is going to die anytime soon, especially when you can utilize something like Power BI with Excel. You know, if you're pushing out information out, not, let's push past takeoffs, right? And go into tracking statuses or progress or logistics of your construction site, pre-planning, anything like that. I actually wanted to get into this for my XCon presentation. I wanted to go into Bluebeam for pre-planning site logistics and start tying it into dashboards with your CSV summaries and Power BI. And you could actually track even your construction process. Like you're tracking materials when you're getting them on site, what's on site, who's on site, you know, where these vehicles are going, where you're placing things. And then as the design actually changes itself, you can track revisions. You can track, again, how many materials you have arriving in different areas and different phases. It's an awesome process, and especially when you can push that information into Power BI for that digital dashboard, kind of showing you all of the data in graphs, right?
Yeah, I think that that's a very important thing. It'd be really nice to visualize that data on, say, a map of the site.
Hmm.
So you'll have graphs, but you'll also have like, like a kind of an overlay of the, of the materials and what day they'd be delivered and where on the site. Like that sort of stuff, I think would be very beneficial. And then another issue is, so we're talking about site logistics, which is handled in a completely different software than the master planning, the master scheduling. That's your P6 or whatever. And then you've got pole planning, which could be sticky notes, a whiteboard, or a
Yeah.
digital tool. So you've got three different tools to get that you kind of all need to talk together, but none talk together. And I've seen some people pull some stuff together in Navisworks, but um, it's so labor intensive. Not that, any other software isn't going to be labor intensive. It's just saying like it's so labor intensive, and yet you still don't have your master schedule really in there. It's still not managing your poll planning. It's got a little bit of the master schedule tied in there. It's got a little bit of the site logistics and materials and all that stuff that are on there. But the poll planning is so day by day. It's too tedious to do it in a program like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. I completely understand. I mean, and in a PDF at the same time, it's kind of hard. But when I start letting my kind of nerdiness fly, right? I start thinking about how can I can use pull information. You know, I can start creating schedules with review in terms of statuses, tracking statuses or what have you, and pulling information, but in a way of using JavaScript and forms as well. So you're actually tracking as this data is adjusted or input. Like if I change a status of a polyline that I have representing some type of conduit, right? Now, they've pulled this conduit or they pulled this wire and they've set every part of this on the site. I can have it kind of track and then pull that information into a form and have that kind of track, again showing you percentages or what have you. Even with Power BI, I think what with the disconnection there is it has to go into a spreadsheet first and be
yeah.
uploaded. If we can take that information maybe directly from the document and directly input it into something like a form, I think that'd be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so too. I think if you could leverage like a smart sheet or not no something even more above that. So let's just say like Microsoft Project, put a Power BI dashboard on it and have it account
Mm,
for all those different disciplines we were talking about, or different things to coordinate that we were just talking about. The poll
yeah,
planning, the master schedule, the material, the site logistics, deliveries, all that sort of stuff. Uh, you know, Crane installate. Like if all this
yeah,
stuff was planned out in a more robust fashion, fed to Power BI. Maybe it updates a spread, or maybe it updates a PDF, and something that people are more able to get a hands on, because you're not buying Microsoft
yep,
Project licenses for everybody. It just doesn't happen. But you can
No.
publish a Power BI dashboard for everybody to look at. And then if you get a PDF of the site and kind of give everybody a snapshot of what's going on, just very powerful way to do stuff.
It is.
I don't do enough with Power BI. I love it. I'm a data geek. I love Tableau. I love Power BI. But outside of pushing some stuff from Revit, playing some stuff with inside of BIM 360, I just, I've done some very complex Excel spreadsheets, but and some GIS stuff. I don't really think I've played with Power BI as much as I would like to.
Yeah. We'd all like to get a little bit more time to spend in all these cool programs. That's for sure.
Give me a use case that fits my day to day, so I can make the time to force myself to do this. It's the same thing with Dynamo, man. Like, I'm not in production. I don't do anything with Revit these days. I just talk about it a lot. That said, like, force my hand so I have to get in there and do something and automate something in Dynamo, and that's the kick in the pants I think I need.
Yep. I agree. Now another workflow that I'd say was pretty cool, and we talked about this one a while back, but it's the capability to do layout from a PDF in Bluebeam as well.
You know what? When we started this podcast, I said we were going to tie this all together. Trust me, guys, we were going to tie this all together. And by God, David Campbell has done it. He has brought this full circle. CIM to Bluebeam to layout. My man.
Oh yeah, but honestly, it was a really cool workflow. I mean, with that vectorized data, you can see the point information, and really, if you scale it correctly, you can insert it into something like Magnet Field and do layout from your PDF. It's awesome.
I want to say, if you have the DWG guys, we are not advocating to lay out from a PDF.
No.
If you have to lay out from a PDF. So I came from survey construction layout, and it was very, very interesting, the file types we got. We most often got Civil 3D, but whenever you need to reference something, we would just look it up on our data collector and look at the PDF and zoom in and the plans and kind of see where we were in relation. Like, there's an iron rod over there. It says that it's between it's somewhere 10 feet outside of the right of way over there by that corner. So then you bust out your Schonstatt and you walk over there. So we used it as reference. We didn't necessarily lay out from it.
Yeah.
But that said, I've talked to many people who have, and as long as this is a vectorized PDF, it is scaled and calibrated correctly. There really isn't too much of a problem, man.
Man. I mean, I imagine you do your occupy and backside, you calibrate off of your control points, right? Once you calibrate off your control points, at that point, you should just be able to go around and recognize where those points are on that level. And the interesting thing to think about is if that PDF is vectorized and all tied together in terms of maybe coming from Revit with the point data or CAD, it's interesting because the point data, after, like I said, after it's calibrated, it's going to be the same on those levels. Like, that's where those points are as you go through the different sheets.
Well, typically people laying out from a PDF don't have point data, and here's why. If they had point data, they would have Autodesk point layout typically to place the points. Therefore, they would be able to kick out the DWG for the data collectors to read. So it's kind of a moot point in that. But if they are laying out from the PDF, and it did come from a CAD program, I do have one worry. I run into a lot of people that fudge dimensions.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Bad juju. Trying to scale a PDF and you cannot figure out why it won't. And you're like, that's not a real dimension. That's why.
An inch and 3/4 off. I don't get it.
No.
Well, the reason why is because somebody got lazy.
Galaga.
Yeah, somebody was too lazy and just didn't want to move their walls. So all they did was they fudged the dimension to make it work. It sucks. It's a natural thing. People do it all the time. My suggestion is, hopefully you own a seat of the program and you can actually check the dimensions in the program yourself before you get to PDF. And if so, go back and force them to make some changes or find something else to scale from, because that sucks. That sucks so bad.
Now
I,
3D PDFs, there's something that's interesting. Now I don't know if you can lay out off of
I
a
don't.
3D PDF.
You can't bring a 3D PDF into a data collector. It won't work.
That's interesting.
At
That's
least I
an
don't.
interesting workflow.
I'm like 90% certain you can't. There's 10% chance I could be wrong.
Don't quote us on statistics.
Don't quote us on statistics. Damn it. Um, that said, though, guys, if you are laying out from PDFs and it is a bad CAD file, um, chat with
It's
your design
possible, but
teams. Yeah, figure it out. Well, there, somebody will be pretty honest about it and let you know that why they did it or what happened, what the use case was, or what the specific case was.
yeah.
Um,
Now, I want to say, going off of that, though, if you want to be more accurate, of course, and as Joey said, you have APL Autodesk Point Layout inside of AutoCAD, Navisworks, Revit. Those are all going to have their benefits, right? Each kind of given whichever program you use. But Joey and I are actually going to be coming out with a series about this soon.
yeah,
We're going to
next
start
week.
with next week. Yeah. We're going to start with AutoCAD, and then we're going to go into Revit and then Navisworks.
Yeah,
And
and
actually,
BIM
while I'm
360.
thinking about it, let's give a. You want to give a teaser, Joe? You want to give a teaser? What would you talk about for Revit or for AutoCAD?
All right,
What would you give a teaser for AutoCAD? Like a big tip or trick?
well, there's a
Or
few
let's just say maybe just a teaser for that webinar. Like, why would somebody want to watch our webinar about AutoCAD layout?
because it's us, damn it. And we will be
Less beer,
sober
but
and
still us.
not drinking any alcoholic beverages. That said, if we do
Well,
have cups, I cannot vouch for what is or isn't in them. No, I'm just kidding. Our
it's
employers are
breakfast in
watching
a cup.
this. Yeah. It's like, no, I'm just kidding. Pork chop in a can.
Is he chewing his drink? It's a Bloody Mary.
Why does he have pickled veg in his coffee? Is
Do you have
that bacon on
asparagus
top of
sticking
his?
out of that coffee cup,
It's a V8. I'm trying to be healthy.
dude? Yeah, more veggies.
Yeah. So my teaser is I run into a lot of people that, especially on the construction so we're talking about GCs, self-performing concrete guys, subcontractors, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Um, there's a lot of nuances inside of the layout process. Everybody does it. We all, either we're pulling tape or we're laying out with a total station. Some companies have their own point creation software, but I'll be honest, none compare to the Easton automation of the Autodesk tool. That said, I've seen some really cool stuff people are doing with Dynamo these days.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the future holds. But
See what the future holds.
But I'll tell you right now, there is nothing on the market that does it quite like Autodesk Point Layout, especially between the different programs. Talking about AutoCAD, Revit, and Navisworks. So in AutoCAD, if you're working with blocks, it's very simple. You select the block, you say place point on, select that, say you want to place a point on that block, you select that block, you place a point, give it a description, and it places points on all those blocks. You can do that for every type of block. Another thing is if you're coming from MEP content, this is smart geometry. It's not as smart as Revit, but it is pretty smart. It knows it knows what it is. It knows that sort of stuff. It will recognize pipe sleeves and all that stuff and allow you to automatically place points on those objects as well. That said, there are like tons of workflows for automating, not necessarily automating, but a manual points placement workflow that is still almost instantaneous. But my favorite workflow is getting your standards set with the field. So as somebody who was out in the field doing the construction layout side of stuff, if your description keys are off, and I say description keys, it's such a civil 3D mindset to be in, but if you're talking about our field codes, we want them to map with what the guys are doing in Revit. That way it's a 1-for-1. We want our standards to come through. Like maybe we've got our job file set up so that certain things get put on certain layers, and we like our symbology in the data collector better than we like what's coming out of the CAD programs. Like we want to be able to map all that stuff. Well, inside of APL and AutoCAD, there's a tool that allows you to edit the code map so that you can, have that like terminology, but also when you do your export, your MJF export out of APL. So there's several ways to do exports out of APL. You can just do a DWG with the point file. You can do just the point file, or because APL was developed by a firm that sold both TopCon and Autodesk product, it kicks out an MJF zip file. MJF stands for Magnet Job File. Magnet is a TopCon software. But what it does is it spins up to the Magnet cloud, does all these conversions, and then it kicks back down. And what happens is it allows you to select an existing job file to pull from. So if you had your standards exported into a job file already, so like I set up my job file in the data collector, I had like a set standards that I, of a template essentially that I had on my desktop. I could keep adding to that job file, and that way it would always have the standards in there. So I could just always start a job from that job file essentially, and add my DWGs and all that stuff to that job file, and then send that to the guys out in the field, whether Magnet Enterprise, BIM 360, thumb drive, email, doesn't matter, whatever it is. But they would have that already set up to the way that they like to see everything, already mapped. Everything's done exactly the way that they want to do it, want to see it.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah. So a long teaser, but just a cool discussion about what's possible. I think there's so many misconceptions about the point layout tool, and everybody's like, oh, it's so hard, it's so hard to place points, and like we've got this tedious workflow. We'll bring our CAD file into Civil 3D, and then we'll use that to place points, or we'll stay in CAD and then we'll export to a database or Excel file with all our points, and then we'll just number them in there, and then we'll bring in our point file with it. Like, it's so much tedious stuff. Or they'll just bring in a DWG into the data collector. The issue with all of those workflows is they're very manual. If I'm going through and cleaning up an Excel file, manual. There's human error because we're manipulating data in Excel file. I can't tell you how many times I blew my coordinates and setups because I was messing with the CSV trying to clean it up when I was out in the field. Not a fun mistake to realize you made. You lose like 2 hours of work trying to figure out what the hell is going on. And then also bringing in the straight DWG into the data collector. It'll do a few things for you. It'll automatically place points for you on the blocks, but it recognizes the insertion point on the block. Well, if I'm bringing in a block for, say I've got a block for an air handling unit, I don't want that block on the I don't want the insertion point to be where my point gets placed, because that insertion point is probably looking at the center of gravity. It's probably where they're looking at, the centroid of it, but that's not where I want my point to be placed. So you got to keep that stuff in mind. Maybe I'm looking at the geometry. I want it on four corners or whatever it is. So you have to, think a little bit more about those processes. And if I do it in APL, I can automate all that stuff pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree.
But there's my teaser, man. My 10-minute trailer for a 4-minute webinar.
You kind of incorporated all of it, though. Like, I like how you went from AutoCAD and really into the functionality of all of it with Revit and Navisworks, even of selecting similar, of choosing, automating it really is what you're going to be able to do.
Oh yeah, our Navisworks one is going to be very short. People are going to be like, "Oh, is that it?"
That's why we're going to go into BIM 360 layout too. Navisworks is Navisworks. You got your selection sets, you got your selection tree built out. You can grab a lot of information really quick and lay out those points super fast. I want to say, honestly, I mean it's about cleanup after that. I want to say, or really tweaking what information or what model elements and placing those into your sets and knowing where you want to place those points.
Yeah, the one detriment Navisworks has, even though it has the ease of use functionality, is the ability or the lack of ability to export a DWG. So that really hinders us when we get to the layout portion, because there's a lot of funkiness that happens when you bring an IFC into a data collector. Doesn't matter what brand data collector. Some people say they have better workflow. I promise you, they're all half-assing it. They work really well in 3D, but when you get to the 2D, you start to lose some stuff. It's definitely weird. So I like to export the IFC to a DWG inside of AutoCAD, and that way I'll bring in the floor plan for layout that way. So that way I'll have my 2D and my 3D because I'll have the IFC. That said, the best method for me in Navisworks is to kick that straight into BIM 360 layout.
Yep, I agree.
No file formats, no conversions. Don't worry about it. Just
Nope.
pump it to the cloud, drop it in there, open it up on your smartphone or your tablet, connect to your total station.
Well, now that
Your
it's the
top.
new, well, I mean, are you talking glue or are you talking new?
I'm talking new, man. Glue's old.
Yeah,
Glu's yesterday's
yeah,
news. Come
glue's
on.
old school. It's old school,
Yeah.
man. New school is awesome. I'm telling you what, being able to create points with the Android version just straight from your mobile device or your tablet, like this is what this is and where it is, and then being able to say, okay, wait, this is an issue. Like we need to go ahead and notate this, assign responsibility, and track it throughout the project. Yeah, heck
Yeah,
yeah.
if you can leverage the power of the Docs communication collaboration platform with your layout process, that's awesome, man. That's where
Yep.
that's you're really communicating. We always talk about field to finish. We always talk about site to office communication. We talk about these terms and buzzwords, but BIM 360 Docs through layout is actually bringing that kind of full circle.
Yep.
There's some really cool stuff to talk about when you get into BIM 360 layout. I want to call it next gen. It's not really next gen. It's current version. We always say next gen just because we were in the field in glue days.
We were
back.
old school. This is the new stuff.
Yeah, we're the old dogs.
Back in my day, we had to load stuff up through glue. You had to merge all the models together, and then you could do your layout.
Back in my day, we had separate databases all under the same name of BIM 360. I love it, man. I love it. Oh man. But the new version, there's a few things that caught me up that I'm happy that we're going to be able to demystify. Like, for instance, whenever you bring in your CAD file or whatever file you've got, Navisworks, doesn't matter, IFC, and you're doing layout on it, when you bring it into your smartphone, you go through the layout app, you download the file locally so you can do some layout, offline. You'll notice that there are no points there. You're like, where are my points? What's going on? You have to physically go in and say import APL points. And the reason is those points that get created inside of BIM 360, they're different than APL points. APL points are XYZ points. They're essentially geometry.
Points are like issues.
That's exactly it. BIM 360 points are actually XYZ based issues. So they're issues. It uses the issue creation engine in BIM 360 to create the points for you to lay out. So it's pretty interesting the way that works. But dude, it's got so much more functionality. We can connect to GPS units now, like because it uses the NMEA file format. All GPS units do. It's pretty standard. We've got so much new functionality with it. I love it. I do have a complaint about it. I have a complaint about every product. So yeah, everybody knows that. So
what is it?
The docking on the screen on the side.
Yeah, dude. So that's horrible, man. You get a smaller screen and you realize that how am I going to do layout with this?
Yeah, you need a 10-inch tablet for the next.
You need a big tablet.
Yeah. The 10.1, check out the ruggedized Samsung Galaxy. I hear great things for that. You and I have had some success with the FC 6000A Android. I think it was a 7-inch. I like it. It does great. Again, though, I think I'd like to have a 10-inch.
Small screen. Yeah, I want the bigger screen. Yeah. That's just the American in me. I want it bigger. It's got to be a bigger screen.
Damn it, I want a 56-inch TV out there to lay out.
Yeah, dude, you better put that thing on a swivel, and I want it to flip down, and I'm gonna lean over it and draw on it.
Well, converted Texan in me wants to put it on a belt buckle. So, walking on the job site, got my tablet on a belt buckle.
Oh, good lord! Lord.
Man,
That's awesome.
I will say, dude, you and we haven't gone on too many tangents this episode, bud.
Yeah, nope. Sips beer. I
Oh
go
man.
like the Kermit the Frog meme there.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, dude. No, I think this was a good episode. I think this was a really good episode.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. Just, I think there's a lot of content out there that you and I have been in lately that we want our BWB fans to check out. You and I chatted about this at the beginning of this episode. We've got some big things planned here pretty soon. Got to get some time dedicated to it, some write-ups, and some good content. Some brew sessions coming up pretty soon. I keep saying soon. It's probably about 2 weeks away.
Oh, that is soon. That is soon.
That is
That's
pretty
awesome.
soon.
That's exciting, dude.
About 2 episodes out, man, and 2 more episodes, and then we'll have a brew episode. We'll have a special, man. It'll be the Brewing with Bim special, as I butcher a Citra IPA recipe. But I just want to say thanks to all our fans. You guys are great. You guys know where to find us. Check us out on LinkedIn, Twitter. Our website is www.brewingwithbim.com. We have a YouTube page. Check us out there. All the videos. We're not just talking. If you're listening to us on the iPad or I can't even talk, iTunes, iPodcast, whatever it is, Apple platform or Castbox or Anchor or any of that stuff. You can check us out also on YouTube. We've got our own channel there. You can watch the videos, see what we're drinking, and watch the funny faces and watch Dave get eaten up by mosquitoes. But so thank you, and follow, subscribe.